Bible prophecy is active and unfolding daily. Zechariah 12, Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Here is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. Hezbollah is preparing Syria as a second battlefield against Israel. From the Long War Journal, the pro-Hezbollah news site Yasor quoted Hezbollah sources last week saying that the group intends to fire long-range missiles at Israel from the Kalamun and anti-Lebanon mountain ranges, areas under its control on both sides of the Syrian-Lebanese border. Hezbollah sources said the region's vast expanses were ideal for easily and safely firing long-range missiles at Israel. This coincides with other reports that Hezbollah has transferred its longer-range rockets to Syria as they require launching pads too large to be hidden in Lebanon from Israel's aerial surveillance. Placing its longer-range weapons in Syria is thought to put Hezbollah's rockets out of range of IDF ground troops, and they could be hidden in the Syrian army's hardened shelters to better insulate them from airstrikes. With the dispersal of Hezbollah's missiles across the Kalamun Mountains, Israeli jets would have to cover a much larger area to locate and destroy them, while also worrying about Syrian and Russian air defenses. And from the Jerusalem Post, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot said on Sunday, quote, "Hezbollah continues to arm itself and grow inside Lebanon. We will continue to act decisively to thwart these efforts and will continue to prevent the transfer of advanced weapons to Hezbollah. Hezbollah continues to violate UN resolutions and prepare themselves for war." Now, I have an all-time favorite television show from when I was a young boy, from the 1960s, that I can't get enough of. It's a black and white program titled The Rifleman, and there are two primary reasons I enjoy this show so much. First, because the theme is all about a father and his son. The relationship I had with my own dad has much to do with that, because our relationship was very much like the one presented in this show. But of course, Yahweh's relationship with his son, his Yachid, Yeshua, is part of all that too. But then there's a second aspect to it that really gets the cogwheels of my mind turning. And that is seeing the amazing amount of progress that has occurred in the world in such a short time. The show depicts life in the late 1800s. No electricity, oil lamps, no indoor plumbing or hot and cold running water, outhouses and wells or streams, no television or computers, checkers. No motor vehicles, horses, or feet. And my point about this is, my friends, that we all have an alarming tendency to take much for granted without realizing that we are doing so. Long before any knowledge of electricity existed, people were aware of shocks from electric fish. Ancient Egyptian texts dating from 2750 BC referred to these fish as the thunderer of the Nile and described them as the protectors of all other fish. But things like electricity and indoor plumbing were basically unknown to mankind for practically all of history. Think about this. Most homes in this world had no electricity until around the 1920s. That means that in all of 6,000 years of history, for some 5,900 years of it all, Everyone was living with the same luxuries that the rifleman and his son lived with. Communications had to be written down and transported by hand, on horseback, or by foot. Everything we have today, cell phones, computers, flat-screen TVs, fuel-injected automobiles, air travel, hot and cold running water, indoor pools, baths, showers, toilets, lighting, heating, air conditioning, juicers and blenders and microwaves and ovens, refrigerators, grocery stores, fast food chains. Where do I stop? So what's my point? I guess it's the same as last week's personal thoughts. Time is running out. It seems that people kind of, they don't quite grasp the idea that everything, all this technology has only come into the world in the past 100 years. Oh, that's a long time. Well, not compared to 6,000 years. Anyway, turning to wars and rumors of wars, on Thursday, March 16th, from the Times of Israel, Israel used its Arrow 3 missile defense system for the first time after Israeli jets were targeted with Syrian anti-aircraft missiles during an operation over Syria. 3 SA-5 surface-to-air missiles were fired by Syria at Israel Air Force planes. The missile intercepted by Israel's Arrow 3 apparently fell in Jordan, while 2 more fell in Israel. The Arrow missile system was originally designed to intercept enemy ballistic missiles on their way to Israel outside the atmosphere as far away as possible, but the Arrow apparently can now be used against shorter-range surface-to-air missiles as well. On Sunday, March 19th, from Reuters, Syrian rebels launched a major offensive that brought them close to the heart of the old city of Damascus, and government forces responded with intense bombardments of rebel-held areas. The escalation, reported by witnesses, state TV, rebel sources, and a monitoring group, marked a bid by the rebels to relieve army pressure on besieged areas they control to the east of the capital. Turning to our Intifada update. On Wednesday, March 15th, from the Times of Israel, a Palestinian woman rammed her car into a bus stop at the Etzion Junction in the West Bank. Surveillance footage showed the car veer across multiple lanes of traffic and crash into the metal posts that now protect many bus stops. According to the IDF, the driver targeted soldiers and civilians standing at the bus stop. On Friday, March 17th, from the Times of Israel, the IDF opened fire at Palestinian assailants, throwing firebombs at Israeli drivers near Al-Arub, north of Hebron, in the West Bank. One 16-year-old Palestinian was killed, and another was wounded. Looking at our review of last week's news, while continuing to arm itself and grow inside Lebanon, Hezbollah is also preparing Syria as a second battlefield, especially for firing long-range missiles against Israel. Israel used its Arrow 3 missile defense system for the first time after Israeli jets were targeted with Syrian anti-aircraft missiles during an operation over Syria. Syrian rebels launched a major offensive that brought them close to the heart of the old city of Damascus. A Palestinian woman rammed her car into a bus stop in the West Bank. And the IDF opened fire at Palestinian assailants throwing firebombs at Israeli drivers in the West Bank. And that, my friends, is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, stay safe. Shalom.
crowded rooms. I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.